The team is back together, and we're making our best game yet, in my opinion. Recently, neverknow 24/7 and I entered another game jam, the Pirate Jam, held by piratesoftware, and the theme was, You Are the Weapon. We had a few ideas, like controlling a floating sword or transforming into a weapon, but our final idea was to have a character whose limbs were gradually replaced by weapons. Our main inspiration was Chainsaw Man. You only have to look at the main character to see why that is. Another big inspiration was Berserk. We borrowed the cannon arm from it, as well as the dark tone. We had a lot planned for the story and mechanics that, as always, we had to cut out for the jam. But I'll get more into that later. So, similar to the last game we made together, we split both the art and programming between ourselves. neverknow focused on the player controller, while I focused on the enemies. We already used the first day to heavily discuss our goals and start our game design document, so we are already on the same page. For the enemies, my goal was to create at least 3 of the enemy types we had planned. Those were cultists, bats, and spirits, which were later changed to eyes. The cultist enemies were supposed to be weak ground units. They'd stumble around and try to get in your face. First, I gave them an idle walk, and made them randomly start and stop, like a stumble. I also wanted them to avoid each other so that they don't bunch up. I wasn't sure how I'd do that, so I looked into void behavior and wrote something based off of that. After that, we started working on some art concepts. We figured out how tall we wanted the player to be. I also went and found some colors on Lospec and made a full color palette. Being inspired by Berserk and Chainsaw Man, we didn't want to shy away from blood, so our colors feature a lot of pinks and reds. We planned for the game to take place in a shrine/cave, so we also used a lot of browns. The greens and blues are for the player and the weapons. Using these colors and some references, I drew the first iteration of the enemies and some concepts for the environment. neverknow also started to draw the final design of the player. Honestly, some of his best artwork. A lot of effort went into it, like having different versions depending on how many weapons you have. Animating the enemies was pretty fun. For the bat, I used a video reference to animate it flying. For the eye, I tried to make a cool teleport effect that I'm pretty happy with. And for the cultist, I used neverknow's player sprite as a base. I also tried to use more subpixels for my art this time, something I picked up from the last jam I did. But the animation didn't stop there. If you've played older games like Unreal Tournament or Half-Life, then you probably know about gibbing. This is something that we absolutely needed for the game feel. To make it work, I just split the sprites into separate parts. Then, when an enemy dies, I spawn those parts as physics objects, along with some red blobs. I give them all a velocity to send them in the direction that you attacked, with a bit of randomness. That, along with these hit effects, makes for some satisfying feedback. For the music, I wanted to make something kind of Doom-inspired. Something that's eerie, but would get you pumped up at the same time. I used a lot of choir voices and electric guitars. I made 2 tracks, a build-up for before you get the first weapon, and a more fast-paced track for after. I'm pretty happy with how these turned out. The last stuff I worked on was some UI art, and a little bit of the game design document. There's still a lot to talk about for our level design and player mechanics, but since neverknow worked on that, I'll just let him explain. I'll have his devlog in the description of this video. We're both happy with what we were able to finish for this jam, but we're not done yet. We're going to keep working on it until it's what we fully envision, so I'm excited to make more devlogs for this in the future. That's it, you can go now. What? You wanted to know about Toilet Zone? Yeah, I'm still working on it, and I'm going to make another devlog for it soon. The demo levels are functionally complete, and I'm going through a polish phase right now. So,